as I went into corporate America and I got my degrees, I got the multiple degrees, Fortune 500s, the credentials started to add up. And I started to realize that you could have a wonderful career in corporate setting and you could make lots of money and be very wealthy, but you wouldn't have your freedom. And I was after freedom. I wanted freedom of time, freedom of finance. I wanted to live a life that was suitable for the things that I feel called to do in life.
Welcome to Wealth Beyond Riches. Do you like change? Do you think change is hard? How do you feel about change within your business or career? Today's guest loves change. She, in fact, says in her book, "Change chose me." She also says, change is not happening to you, change is happening for you. Today, we're going to talk about how to shift our thinking around organizational change, how mission, vision, and values aren't just for organizations, but also for families. And she's going to talk about how they have a why for her family and how to create a no longer do list so that you're free to do the things most important to you. Our guest is Pam Marmon. She's passionate about organizational change. She's built a career helping Fortune 500 leaders and organizations transform. She's a best-selling author, professional speaker, entrepreneur, mother, world schooler. You're going to hear about that, and you're going to love this conversation. If you are new to the show, this is not another show about personal finance or investing. It's 2 to 3 layers deeper. It's about purpose. See, our mission is to help you reimagine your relationship with work and money. Here, we're going to dive into the insights and stories of guests who have redefined what success looks like to them. They've thought deeply about their relationship with money and work, allowing them to leverage their purpose and calling to make a greater impact on the world. Our goal? That you leave each episode inspired, moving your life 1% closer to your true purpose. Subscribe now and join us on this journey to a richer, more meaningful life. This is going to be good. I'm just going to get right into it because this is just natural. You do something called, you call it world schooling. Is that right?
World schooler children.
Okay. And remind me ages of the kids.
So I have twins that are 10 and another one that's almost 9.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Awesome.
And they're all boys. Lots of adventures, lots of jumping in puddles and creeks and fishing and everything you can possibly imagine with boys. We are knee deep into it and loving it.
That's awesome. So how did this world schooling thing come about? And also, what were the trade-offs along the way? You and I have talked about that. You can't just do this. How did you plan ahead for that? And how did you start just heading your family in that direction?
Yeah, so COVID came. 2020 came. COVID was the beginning of our world school adventure. And our kids were just starting school. They were in kindergarten. And we tried the public system. We tried private education. We tried hybrid models. And we finally decided that the best education we can give them is to take them to the world and show them culture and experiences and memories that we get to create together. And it was really interesting because we came to that realization as we were trying all these different methods of educating a child. We came to the realization that our why doesn't fit the how of society. So our why is to raise entrepreneurs. System creates employees. And so our why didn't match. And in order for us to create the right environment for our children, which environment is everything, both in organizations and at home, we needed to shift the way we do our life. And so my business had to shift. I had to do certain things in my business. I called it my I no longer list. I no longer do certain things the way I used to do them because it doesn't fit into my new environment that we've created for our family. Both my husband and I are completely remote. We can work anywhere in the world. And we thought, how amazing would it be if our children are also remote and we can be anywhere in the world together? Travel is a big, important value for our family because we get to experience things together. We get to learn together. And as someone who I've created curriculum for organizations. I've written books. I've taught as a professor. I know what it takes to educate someone. And it's not sitting behind a desk for 8 hours. I know that. I know that you will remember what you feel and what you experience. And so the best way and the best education we could give our children was to travel with them and experience it together. So perfect example, this summer we were in Europe and we were hiking the Dolomites, which are the Italian Alps. And there's one hike particularly you can take where you learn about World War I because they've set up the bunkers. The bunkers are still there from World War I. So you're hiking these gorgeous mountains as you're learning about history. That to me is priceless. That is the epitome of education, to have the memory, to have nature, to be together with your family, to have conversations that are really deep with 9 and 10-year-olds about war. And to share those memories as a family has been incredible.
And 9 and 10-year-old boys, I have an 8-year-old boy and an 11-year-old boy. Those deep conversations and learning experiences, in my experience as a dad, those aren't 40-minute lectures. There's a lot of movement involved. We were watching a movie last night with a bunch of other people, and my son's bouncing a ball and walking around the whole time. Did he hear the whole thing? Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
But he had to be moving, and so you're putting your sons in an environment where they're moving.
Constantly, yes. Moving, asking questions. When we've traveled, so in the last 3 years, we've been to 56 national parks. Like, we are obsessed.
Yeah.
That would be probably the proper word for it. And what we do is whenever we get on the road, we'll say, what will the road teach us today? We're open to learn. And you will pass by farms, and you will pass by factories, and you will pass by power plants. You will pass by a lot of things that are interesting and fascinating. And instead of being buried in technology, especially when we travel Europe, I'll say, no iPads. You're bored? Look out the window. That's our motto.
Yeah.
And we are focused on learning through conversations rather than learning through textbooks and lectures and worksheets, which are fine. They also serve a purpose. But the richness of the conversations is where the heart of our education lies. And so we are offering ourselves and our knowledge. And the things that we don't know, we can always research it and find it and ask Siri if you have to. You can really get creative. But I think it's teaching your children that curiosity is a gift and it's something to cultivate. Wonder is an experience that you should have for the rest of your life, not just when you're a child. And we're essentially borrowing their wonder. We're borrowing their curiosity every time we experience new things and new places. We get to learn and see the world through their eyes.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I had to Google it. I don't have this memorized, but there's a quote from Plutarch that says, the mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like you guys are doing that, which is really cool.
Love it.
So,
We're seizing the moment.
Yeah. So you talked about having values as a family, a why as a family. That sounds like something usually kept for corporations or nonprofit organizations. Where did you get that idea to go after that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think all the years of experience over the last 2 decades, I've been leading organizations through change.
Yeah.
Fortune 500, small startups, churches, nonprofits, you name it. I have been incredibly blessed and fortunate to have the career that I've had. Part of it has been luck. Part of it has been being in the right place and being ready to take on those opportunities. And as I've learned from organizations what works, what doesn't work, I've learned a lot about human psychology and motivation and just how do we experience the world in a way that makes us fulfilled, ultimately fulfilled. And so as I was working with organizations who were setting strategy, how are we going to roll out this massive change, multi-year, multi-million, whatever it may be, how do we connect it to the mission of the organization? How do we help people understand why they're doing the things that we're asking them to change in their daily lives? It brought it back home for me because if I'm going to do this with organizations, why wouldn't I do it at home with my own family? I am creating my own culture with my family, with my children, with my husband. And if we don't have a vision, we're not going to go anywhere. So we needed a vision. We needed the steps to get there. Now, we loosely plan it. It's not perfect and it's not programmatic in a way, but it's loosely planned and we know essentially where we want to get to. And especially with raising children, we know exactly where we want to get to. And we're letting them take risks along the way within the parameters of our guidance so that they can learn. Because we know that if they're experiencing entrepreneurship at an early age, if they understand what a Roth IRA is and how to invest in the stock market, which they are doing at age 8, 10, or whatever.
Awesome. Yeah.
They're in that space already learning money, learning how to manage money, how to make money, how to invest money. Those are the lessons that we wanted our children to learn early on. And it took values that are important to us put in practice so that they can see it, witness it, be part of it, be part of the decision making. I always like to remind my clients, if someone is not part of the decision, it's very hard to hold them accountable to that decision. So when we included our family into the crafting our strategy, crafting our vision, who we want to be, where we want to get to in life, that really helped all of us to come along together and link hands and work in unity.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you're here today. You talked about it's not perfectly planned out and structured and all that stuff. And I think if you had tried that, you probably wouldn't be here because Because I've done that, but where it's overstructured, it's overplanned, and all of a sudden, why is everyone rebelling? I don't get it.
We wouldn't include it. That's
Yeah.
fine. Absolutely, yeah. And I've done the 3-year planning, the 5-year planning, all of that, and it's
Yeah.
great. It's wonderful to be able to put it on paper. But the reality of life, there's surprises that come along the way. There are changes of circumstances, jobs that change, clients that change. We have to be flexible, and I think that's what we get to model to our children. When we show that flexibility, that's an opportunity for them to learn, and we don't want to rob them of that opportunity.
So how did you get into entrepreneurship then? What was that journey like?
Yeah, so I have to go way back. I grew up in a communist country in Eastern Europe, and communism fell when I was in first grade. And so I was in that transition period. And during communism, you are not allowed to be an entrepreneur. That's just not part of the system. And so after the fall of communism, my parents were quick to jump into entrepreneurship. And so they modeled it for me. Coming to America, they continue to model that behavior through various different businesses and things that they had tried and done. And so entrepreneurship was ingrained in me because I watched my family transition from something where they couldn't have it to somewhere where the sky is the limit, anything you can do. And as I went into corporate America and I got my degrees, I got the multiple degrees, Fortune 500s, the credentials started to add up. And I started to realize that you could have a wonderful career in corporate setting and you could make lots of money and be very wealthy, but you wouldn't have your freedom. And I was after freedom. I wanted freedom of time, freedom of finance. I wanted to live a life that was suitable for the things that I feel called to do in life. And so entrepreneurship felt like a very natural transition. And I did it in parallel for a while. And that was totally fine as I was starting out consulting. This is not the first consulting business I've ever owned. I've had multiple things that have worked and haven't worked. And so we learn along the way. And there are many more businesses to come in my future, which is really exciting. But entrepreneurship felt like the right amount of risk. And it's obviously calculated to some degree. There's uncertainty, and I'm comfortable with change, so that's fine. But it also gave us the freedom to do what we wanted to do. It gave me also the freedom to say what I wanted to say. Because I couldn't say what I really wanted to say in a corporate setting. You represent a brand. There's corporate communications that you have to get approvals. But as an owner of my own company and as an entrepreneur, I have the ability to share my voice in the way that I want it to be heard. And so when I wrote my first book, one of the main themes of the book is stop saying that change is hard. Because when we condition ourselves to think that change is hard, we live it as if change is hard, and change is hard. And that's neurotical. People don't talk about change is hard. They usually say change is very hard. But I just wanted to shift slightly the way we think about our relationship with change. And then in the second book, the theme is change is not happening to you, change is happening for you. And it's a very minor, subtle shift that can transform the way you live your life and the outcomes of your life. And so entrepreneurship was the vessel to get me to the point of being able to vocalize the things that I believe are true in a way that is authentic to me.
Talk about that period of doing those two things in tandem, the corporate job, starting the consultancy. I think there's a lot of people out there going, I'm in this lane, I feel stuck. I don't know if I can do something else. I can't do it at the same time because my brain's all here. But what was that period like? Because I think people can learn from that.
Yeah, so it was in my 20s. The 20s, I made the most of my 20s. I worked multiple jobs. I was getting multiple degrees. It was amazing. And I think this is why in my 40s, I get to benefit and reap what I planted in the 20s. So in my 20s, I was working for a Fortune 500 company in finance. And at night, I was going to school. I was getting my MBA at night. And an opportunity came up for me to start my own business. And the way it came, the first company that I started was, I was at the spa. And this is such a funny story. I was at the spa talking to the owner, telling her how great the spa is and how they can improve this and that. And she said, why don't you come and do it for us then? And I said, I guess I'm going to start a company. That is how it started.
Wow.
It was such a simple, I showed up, I had a voice, I shared something that was helpful for somebody, and they said, well, come along and do it. And beginnings can be very clunky and very non-glamorous, and that's okay. You don't have to have a website. You don't have to have a degree in it. None of that. Just get out there and do it. So I started to do that. So full-time job, getting my MBA, and started a consulting firm.
And going to the spa. So don't
And going to the spa.
that's definitely got to be part of the checklist.
Yeah, and going to the spa.
Have you done the Gallup Strengths Finder test?
I have.
Is Maximizer in your top 5?
I believe it is. Yes,
Okay.
and responsibility is in there as well.
Okay.
And so I maximize basically every opportunity that I have. So if I'm going to be somewhere and I'm going to say something important to someone, I love it to be impactful. And that was the beginning. Now, that was an interesting season. My early 30s were also interesting, which kind of leads into where I'm at now. I had given birth to 3 babies in 15 months.
Wow.
I was working full-time as a consultant, and I was a professor at a Christian university in Chicago. And I decided to start a nonprofit helping churches grow. And so that was a nonprofit business.
Okay.
All of these things combined, I literally thought I was going to break
Yeah.
because it was so much. And I had to scale back and readjust as time went on. All that to say is don't be shy and don't be afraid and don't think you need a degree and you need permission to do what you want to do. You don't need permission. Nobody's going to invite you to come into entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
This is your choice. This is your life. And if that's something you want, and I do want to highlight this is really important about any change, you have to want it. If you don't want it, it's not coming for you. But if you want it, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to world school your children, if you want to be financially well, like you have to want it. The path will become clear. You might have to try a few things, but eventually the path will become very clear. So now I know what I say yes to and what I say no to, because I know exactly where I'm going and what I want. And I think a lot of people are stuck in that space of, I just don't know what I want.
Yeah.
And that soul searching work that needs to take place.
That's awesome. I remember sitting in a circle with a lot of very well-known public speakers, a guy named John Gordon, a guy named Jordan Montgomery, and they were just dispensing their wisdom on a group of guys who are speakers, who do a lot of speaking. You do speaking for organizations. And they were like, what's the number one way I can grow? And John Gordon was like, you got to get in the room. I think I did 82 talks before I ever got paid.
That's right.
And I had to get in the room in order to get reps and practice and craft.
Exactly.
And you showed up, maximized a spa for a couple seconds, and it launched a business out of that.
And that was the beginning. And that was the beginning of one business. I no longer have that business. Now I have something else. And speaking of the room, which is really interesting that you brought that up, because I have been in rooms where I don't belong. And I have known that. Particularly as a female, I have been in rooms that have been male dominated, completely male dominated, where people have said, what is she doing here? Like, why is she here? And a part of me has not been shy to show up in places where I feel like maybe the room or the door is shut, or there's no chair for me around this table. I just haven't been shy about it. And I feel like so many women in particular shy away from knocking on doors or walking through doors or places where they could be. You can be there. And that's okay because of just insecurities or waiting for an invitation. You don't have to be invited. You can just knock. And if it's not the right door and they don't want you there, move on. Go to the next one. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
Those are lessons learned that I think will last me a lifetime.
Yeah. That's so cool. You talked about focusing on what's important to you, your values, like what you want to do. What do you want? What kind of season do you head into? You mentioned a couple minutes ago your no longer do list. When do you put stuff on there? Is that like a running list? Is it a Post-it note? How do you get that going?
Yeah, it started as a Post-it note, and then now it's a running list. In order for me to world school my children, and really that becomes, I am accountable and responsible for educating my children. I want that. I don't want to offsource it to anybody else. In order for me to do that, I can't be sitting behind a computer for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. Given my experience and my ability to orchestrate change within an organization, I can come as an advisor. I can come as a speaker. I can come and do a couple hours here and there throughout the week. I can take projects that don't require my full time. But I'm not going to take projects that require my full time because I no longer do these things. And I can train others how to do what I do. And I've created a training program on organizational change called LESS, which is funny, Less Change. Listen, Empower, Speak, and Solve. And so I have licensed that product so the product can make money on my behalf, on my time. So I've gotten a little bit smart with the resources that I have, and I have figured out if I want to grow, there's certain things I can do, like speaking is a wonderful opportunity to get in front of an audience. But a lot of the work that's behind the scenes can be done by somebody else. And so I no longer do certain things.
What's on that list of no longer do for you right now?
Probably the full-time projects. I no longer show up to clients on site. I don't do that. I have global clients and we do virtual remote meetings. So unless I'm speaking for an event, you probably will never see me and never meet me in person, and that's okay.
Unless you come to Nashville, Tennessee.
Unless I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and I can host you here and we'll have a great time.
Awesome.
But yeah, there are certain things that don't make sense. I no longer do certain type of work that could be done by somebody with less experience than me. I no longer charge a certain way. I no longer charge by the hour. I don't do that. I don't bill. I don't have things like that, which come with time and experience, where you could actually say, I've tried that and it's worked or hasn't worked, or this is what I learned and it doesn't work for me. So that's my running list. And we just keep adding to it as life evolves.
Yeah. Now, I would think with what you're doing and with your expertise, you could probably grow and scale what you're doing and add more people to the team and mentor people and stuff like that. Is that something that you want, or are you content being solo?
Yeah, I don't want that. It's taken me a long time to say it. It's really funny because I feel like we live in a world where we're told in order for you to grow and be successful, you have to have so many people and a team and this. And I realize I don't want the headache of certain things that are required in order to grow. I've taken the sales coaching and I've done all of the work to actually be able to say, I know when enough is enough. I know that. I have a number. I know exactly what that number is. And I know what it takes for me to get there, and I know what it takes for me and the team to get there, and the sacrifices that I have to make along the way. And those sacrifices would take me away from my children and what I'm doing with them, world schooling them and educating them and being with them. And so I am very comfortable saying that I'm a solopreneur, that I can make really good money as a solopreneur, and I don't need to have a team or a bunch of people that support me in order for me to grow. And it's very liberating to say that. I think it's countercultural to say it. And I hope that someone finds encouragement in that you don't really need to. People don't need to even know my name, which is really liberating. You don't have to be famous. There's so many wonderful things you can do behind the scenes or with a very small group of individuals, a very small group of clients that are very fulfilling and profitable.
Yeah. You have a quote that I came across in your Speak Up or Stay Stuck book. I love this. I think you were about to say it. It said, I'm an optimist with a bold message that we can achieve both profit and purpose with people at the center. Talk about that for a second.
A lot of companies that I work with will come to me and say, we want to increase the ROI. And that is absolutely a good thing. My challenge is we don't have to increase the ROI by sacrificing the people along the way. I want the people to win. I want you to win as a leader because you have an ROI target, and that's important, and you should hit it, and I will help you hit it, but I will not sacrifice the people. And so the clients that I attract value people, they value profit, and they believe they can do both at the same time. And that's why they bring me along to help them do that. The clients that don't value people, I don't work with them. And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. You can say no, and you can walk away. But to me, people are critical. The reason why I actually do organizational change is because I realize that if I work with one leader and I help that one leader do change really well, that impact spills into the team, spills into the family unit, spills into the community. Because when a leader gets it right, that leader has tremendous impact on generations to come. Not just one person, not just one team, not just the ROI and the bottom line. And to me, that was incredibly fulfilling. I knew that if a leader gets it wrong, that will spill into families, spill into children's lives and communities, and it will have a negative impact. And I knew that I could change that. That was within my power. I knew that I could nail that one. And so to me, working with executives and leaders and organizations is tremendously important because it's not just the transformation that we lead. We are the transformation. They will be changed. And that I get front row seat to watch them become somebody as the process unfolds in front of us. As we're working together, they get to become someone new, and that's delightful.
That's really inspiring. That's amazing. Would you say that's like your career why as you're helping companies?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I do believe that I have a special calling to help people transform and organizations transform. I am not afraid of change. We are not going to fight it. I actually have a saying, don't fight it, invite it. You don't have to fight change. The people who fight it, they are the ones that struggle with it. The people who invite it, they master it. They become really good at it. They navigate it. They're not afraid of it. I don't want you to fear change. There's a lot of things going on in the world that impact us, and we don't need to fear them. We can embrace them.
Yeah, that's really cool. As you were talking about coaching leaders to lead people, I got like a servant leadership vibe from you for serving the people who we're leading. They're going to win, and at the end of the day, we're going to win as a leader. I get to mentor a group of high school students right now they're in a business incubator course, and I was meeting with one of them, and he's building like a financial literacy app. This kid's like 17, and he's got a back-end development team of kids he found in the library, and he's making this thing, and I am having so much trouble with the lead programmer. And I was like, hey, what does that kid want? What does he value? What's important to him? Does he want friendship? Find out how you can serve him. And he was like, what? And it blew his mind, but such a cool thing, because now now that's going to impact people on that team. Now it's going to impact maybe the people they lead in the future. That's so cool that you get to be a part of that on a regular basis.
And I appreciate you sharing that. I think one thing that I do with organizations when I start working with them, especially this is a large transformation we're working on, I will tell them that I'm not here to tell you what to do. You know what to do. I'm not here to tell you that. I'm here to help you and surface that information from within your group, within your team, and craft something that's going to work for you, that's going to stick. I'm not here to give you off-the-shelf model that worked for one company, didn't work for another. No, so I have one-on-one conversations. I do an assessment. I have one-on-one conversations with individuals, and in 30 minutes with 20 people, I can tell you exactly what needs to happen in your organization to change it. That's literally all it takes. It's the ability to win trust early with people, to be able to articulate and respond back in a way that they feel represented, and to be able to take that information, learn about how change has been done in the past, what worked, what didn't work, how to make it stick in that organization, what motivates people, what excites them, and then create a change plan that actually works for them. And then we just execute at that point. So it's really interesting to me when I hear other consultants come and say, we're the smartest people in the room. I could never say that. That would be just doing disservice to the people in the room.
Yeah.
And when you give them the voice to be part of the change and to be part of crafting the change, and they feel like they're empowered, that's how you win with people. It's not forcing change on people. It's inviting them to be part of it and giving them the freedom to be able to add value, input, to be part of the accountability piece. That's it. Honestly, it's not rocket science. I feel like it's very common sense leadership. But it's sometimes difficult to do. I get it. But I think that's what differentiates my approach to organizational change versus a standard model that can be implemented.
Yeah, it sounds adaptable to what the company needs. It sounds empowering because you're giving the organization a voice. You're giving the leader a voice and the chance to step into right leadership or to continue to walk in whatever direction they're headed.
Yeah.
And so there's you're allowing them to just activate the change that they already probably know they need to do, but having you gently coming alongside them, there's a ton of value in that. Yeah. Like now I'm thinking about who can we merge with, and we can hire Pam and help us.
There you go. I also get to coach them. I get to coach them on what to say and what not to say, when to say it, when not to say it, who to pass on the microphone to so that somebody else can say it. I get to be behind the scenes. I always tell people that if I'm working with you, you should never see me, but you should feel my presence. You should know that I was there. And
it's like Darth Vader. Right. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
But it's really fun because I feel like you can have impact without ever being like in the front line. You can be behind the scenes, coaching and advising and leading. And one of the most fun things I get to do is mitigate resistance. Whenever we introduce change and there's resistance in the organization, I can identify where it's coming from, why it's there, how do we mitigate it, how do we help people overcome it. It is not about forcing it on people.
Yeah.
What is the root cause of why somebody is fighting us on this change? And then articulate it in a way and provide the right tools and the right things in place so that we can legitimately help people. That's really what we're there to do. It's just fun. I love it. I think it's really exciting. And like I said, don't fight it, invite it. And I think it really does set the tone for the organization as a whole.
Yeah. It also sounds really cool when it's like, hey, we need to call the resistance mitigator. Can you guys get her in here?
I love it.
That's so cool. So with you're an entrepreneur. One of your highest goals and values is freedom. Switching to money for a second, you talked about having a number. Yeah. Obviously, you do not need to share a number, but is that an income number for you? Is that a net worth number for you? Is it a charitable giving number for you? Tell me about that.
It's all of them, all of that. Some of it is short term, some of it is long term. What's funny, when I think of money, I don't have a relationship with money. I feel very neutral. To me, money is a very neutral thing. Now, I have a relationship with time. I'm passionate about time because I can never make time. I can make money, but I can never make time. And so my focus is on maximizing time and experiences. Now, money is a great resource that we can use to do those things, to give us freedom. There are people who have lots of money, but they're not free. So it's what you do with the money. I think that's really important. I remember specifically being in a sales training course, and I said, I think I know what enough is. And the room got really quiet because all of a sudden, all these salespeople are like, wait a minute, there's actually an enough number? Like we thought it was just a never ending.
Well, that's not why they're there. They're all there because they're like, I heard it's unlimited if I do this role.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, I'm like, I know what enough is. I know exactly what the breaking point of my satisfaction and my not satisfaction is beyond a certain point of, because I know that in order for you to have more, you really do need to put in more time. And that's really what it is. Like you have to work harder and you have to work longer and all of those things. And so I have an enough number for now. I also know in order for me to quote unquote retire, which I never see myself completely giving up work because I love it. I think we're designed for it. But I know what it would take for me to live a certain lifestyle. And so I know what enough is when that time comes. And I know from a giving perspective and generosity perspective, I know what that number is as well, and in proportion to my income. So I think over the years with experience and wisdom along the way that we acquire through books or lectures or just people that we encounter, we can start to be more refined in what we actually want. And it's never stuff. That's my conclusion to life. It's not the stuff we own that defines us.
That's true. That's true. But what's funny is we go about each day looking around, maybe this is just me, but looking around at people's stuff and how often is it like, oh, look at their stuff and look at that stuff. But at the end of the day, you're right. It doesn't. So it's a weird mindset to have as you're walking around each day. How did you arrive at your enough? Like on a practical level, like how'd you figure that out?
That's so funny that you ask because the answer is so simple. Taxes.
Okay. What do you mean?
I mean, I realized at a certain point when you start making so much, the tax bracket goes up and then you start to look at, okay, was the time that I invested and the income that I earned and what actually came back to me? I don't it's a simple answer, but taxes.
So there was like maybe some tax brackets where it's like, hey, if I get to keep 75% of what I make, awesome.
Yeah.
If I only get to keep 67% of what I make, not as awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was just a mass. We looked at it and we're like, okay, this kind of makes sense. And if we do more of this, does it actually give us enough return on our time? Because my obsession with time. And it came down to taxes.
Yeah. Do you ever, as you mentioned, generosity or charitable giving, let's say the year was better than you expected. Do you ever do more giving to ratchet yourself back down into that tax bracket you want to be in or something like that?
I don't. The years when that's happened, I don't worry about the tax bracket at that point.
Yeah.
Plenty. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
But I do increase the giving. And so we've done some really fun things as a family and have
like what?
Like we bought a playground in my homeland to a community that was extremely poor. Wow. And we brought joy to an entire village where they didn't have a playground before. Now they have a playground and that was fun. Like that was so fun.
Yeah. Did that feel like a sacrifice? Did it feel like a cost?
No, not at all.
Why not?
Because it was from a place of gratitude. I was so grateful that I had a wonderful year. And so it didn't feel we're sacrificing. Maybe we didn't give enough. Maybe that's worth it. Maybe we should have done two playgrounds.
Oh, no, I wasn't going for that. No.
But it was just, it just felt like an overflow, an abundance and an overflow. And we just wanted to bless people who would never meet us or never know us. And that's totally fine. Open ours.
Yeah. Pam, where did that heart come from to want to do stuff like that? Like, where did you first see that modeled for you?
Probably modeled by my parents. My mom is probably the most generous person I know. She gives without ever expecting anything in return. I think the root of it really comes from my family and also from coming to America. And that change was truly transformational, life-changing. I came from a country where your potential is limited or you have certain boundaries to a land of opportunities with unlimited potential. And so I truly believe I'm here because I have something to offer to the world that I couldn't offer on that platform, but in the America platform, I can do it. And so it's this perspective on life that I have that I think it sets me apart in terms of just how I see the world and my role in it and the responsibility I feel because I'm here, because I have a voice, because I've written books, because all of these things add up to a point where I feel like I can do more and I can stretch a little bit further and I can actually reach out to more people in a meaningful way. And that to me is exciting, and it's never a burden. It's exciting, and it's something that I feel very much like it's a calling.
That's really cool. How old were you when you moved here?
I was 12.
Okay.
Didn't speak English. Nobody in my family spoke English. Sink or swim, like you're going to have to figure out life. And I think that set my tone for how I approach everything. It's give it 100%. Don't give it 50%. Nobody's coming to rescue you. You just go at it. That's my motto. And I've been able to apply that in many areas of my life.
What was that like as a 12-year-old learning English? Like, how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, clunky, but looking back, I realized I would write, there's one word, triangle. For some reason, I wrote pages and pages of one word. And I have notebooks of just applying myself to learn the English language. Within 2 years, I was out of the ESL program and into AP English. And so I just feel like I was just so determined that I was going to make it. I think that set me apart. That gave me an edge.
Yeah. As you started to going back to learning generosity from your mom, and for anybody listening, I like to talk about generosity. I deal with people and their money, so it's easy for me to talk about. And I think it's important because this is a little caveat, Pam.
I love it.
People who are generous don't talk about it for good reason.
Yeah.
And I love pulling those stories out of other people because they need to be told.
Yeah.
And I think the only way that we learn to increase our muscle of generosity or our muscle of gratitude, realizing that all that we've been given is a gift and that we can share it with others, that comes through hearing stories. Sharing, as you started to practice generosity on your own or just giving of time or money, what was that like? What were some of the first memories of doing stuff like that?
The first memories, I don't know exactly when that really happened, but I can tell you that leading up to now, my perspective on generosity, specifically with family, has been transformational because world schooling my children is a generosity. It's an expression of generosity of my time and my gifts and my money.
Yeah.
That's be honest.
Which it sounds like time is harder to give up than money for you.
So the time that I'm investing with my family, my children, is my form of generosity, my giving, the giving of experiences. I craft learning experiences like no other. They're amazing, and I love them. I love doing them, with my children. But to me, that is a gift. That is me being generous. I'm going to show you how I'm going to take a resource like money and put it in such a wonderful expression that you will never forget it. There's nothing money could buy you that will compare to this experience that I'm going to give you from a learning perspective and the memory we get to create. The ROI of that memory will last us a lifetime. And so I think when I start collecting these memories and being generous with my time and myself, my children and I get to spend all this time together, that is such a gift. Most parents don't have that. I understand how blessed I am. And that's generosity for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. And honestly, you said lifetime, and I know you're not selling yourself short. Those stories could last for multiple generations.
Absolutely. Yes.
And we've all seen the studies on inheritance with assets, financial assets, and 90% of the time they don't make it to the second one.
Yeah. It's interesting. So when I started world schooling, I decided that there are 3 things that I need to teach my children. The first one is how to make a living. I think that should be the essence of education, learn how to make a living. The second one is how to marry well, because I recognize that who you marry is so important to your life and the outcomes in your life. And not marry well isn't like financially well, but just marry a good person.
Yeah.
And the third is how to be a good person, how to be a good Christian, how to be a person who is generous and giving and delightful and optimistic about life. And so those are the three buckets that when I think of my time with my children, those are the three things I need to teach them by the time they're 18. And so I structure the lessons and the experiences to help add to those characteristics that I want them to have.
Yeah.
And the best way we do it is by being it ourselves. So I like to say that I am the book that they read. There's 1,000 books they could read, but I am the most important book that they're going to read. They're going to watch how I live, how I give, how I speak, how I interact with people, how I treat others. That's the lesson.
Yeah.
And I think it puts that ownership on us as parents.
That's cool. I know we said this last time we talked, but I'm like, I think there's a world schooling digital course built by Pam where you're just literally posting the stuff you're creating. Other people are going to buy that. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
That encouragement. Yes. Thank you for that encouragement. I appreciate it. I wonder if people would be interested, and I'd love to hear from our listeners if that's something they would be interested in, because I have great passion for it. And I think the less people are afraid of it and the more they embrace it, I think we really need to rise up as parents in terms of how we model our values to our children.
Yeah, that's really good. So if you're listening or watching, throw in a comment or throw in a review. Only 5-star reviews. And say, hey, that is something I'd be interested in. And I can let Pam know like what the total is and stuff like that. So that would encourage her. If you're at all encouraged by what she's saying today, I know I am, then you can jump in and encourage her in that way. So that could be really cool. Pam, this is truly amazing to get to learn from you and your experience as a mom, as a leader. One of the things that I like to ask anybody as we're talking, just fun, is what's one thing that you're loving right now? And this could be anything. It could be a person, an experience. Yeah, could be anything. What's one thing you're loving right now?
I feel like we're right at the start of it, but I'm loving this new space that my husband and I are stepping into. We're both entrepreneurs, and we're coming together into a new era for our entrepreneurial journey. And I think that's going to be really exciting. Now, we haven't quite started yet, but it's still exciting because we have been talking about it for years, and now we're finally at a point where we could merge our interests and our passions and what we do with the kids and start something brand new, and that's exciting.
Yeah. Can you talk about it at all?
Not yet, but maybe have me back.
All right. Deal.
Come out in the year. We'll be there. But yeah, it's fun when you can partner with your partner.
Yeah.
And come together knowing who you are and what your gifts are and where you're headed and what you want to do together. I think that's a new level of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Well, and an exciting level.
That's so exciting. That's really cool. Thanks so much for being here today. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with the audience. I know people are going to get a ton out of it. So I know I really appreciated it for sure.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for having me. I'm so delighted to have this conversation, and the blend of family and work and careers and life and travel. I think we're all capable of that. We don't have to compartmentalize one or the other or choose one or the other when you can have the and dream and live it in tandem.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much. Hey there. If this episode impacted you, would you share it with a friend right now? That would mean a lot to me. And even better, if you could leave a review of the show. Maybe mention what part of this conversation stuck with you. On the first Tuesday of each month, we're going to bring you some more stories of great leaders who have learned what it means to be truly wealthy. If you're watching on YouTube, we're going to drop that on the first Thursday of each month. So keep an eye on that. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.